I come from a poor family, yeah. We ain't never had a lot, yeah. But the Lord been good to us, yeah. Now we riding on the top, yeah.
Well, welcome to the boat, guys. Builder of All Things podcast. It's a special episode. Here you can see two very special people here with us this morning. Not usually here. So, Richie, you want to do the honors of introducing our special guests, please?
Actually, I'll let them give a little bit of themselves, but we got Andria with District 1 and Tyler with District 6. We're here specifically to just bring education, awareness, what's happening behind the scenes with Honolulu's permit system. Obviously, we're contractors, and in the construction field, we have to deal with this every day. So just knowing they're coming in and actually giving attention and really pushing some answers and trying to fix some problems and find solutions has just been like heroes to us in this world. It's almost like one of those things that's we were just talking. It's like a closet that hasn't got any attention. It's growing webs, but just finally getting attention. So I believe answers are coming, things are moving, and there's great things coming ahead. But if you guys would love to introduce yourselves and a little bit just your background and say hi to everyone.
Okay,
Andria.
yeah, no problem. My name's Andria Tupola. I represent the West Side. I was a representative for 4 years, been a city council member for 3 years. So I actually first heard Richie voice his concerns at our town hall that I heard with the previous DPP director, Dean Uchida. You know, that was the first time that we had brought to light the number of permits that were stuck in the backlog, and it was a little horrendous. Everybody was very interested to know, what is the path forward? What are they going to fix? So in that meeting, I did a lot of listening. And when you stood up to speak, I wrote down everything you said. There's a lot of good suggestions, right? But then 2 weeks later, Dean resigned.
Yeah. What was up with that?
Yeah. So then I had to kind of go on this whole journey of trying to figure out what I could do legislatively, how I could change it. So Tyler's been an elected official for just this year, and I know that he has that background in construction. And so I've been kind of leaning on him and working with him, because it is not just like a one-person thing. Whenever people are like, oh, what should we do? I'm like, everyone can help, especially with the 9 council members. There's so many different things we could change in the law to make this better. So this is Tyler.
Yeah, and he says he sits right next to you.
Yes.
Yeah. This is actually our sitting arrangement.
Pull up.
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Dos Santos-Dam. I represent District 6 on the Honolulu City Council. This goes from Ward Avenue on the Diamond Head side to Middle Street on the Eva side. So I have kind of the older neighborhoods and all the ridges and valleys in town. I also have Chinatown, downtown, and half of Kaka'ako.
Kaka'ako in the house.
Yeah, so a lot of construction going on there, but actually all throughout my district. And I grew up in Liliha, Alewa Heights, kind of by Natsunoya Tea House. And the thing that actually made the DPP issues get really crystal clear to me was the monster home phenomenon that we've been seeing over the past several years. And growing up in Liliha, Lower Leva Heights, the Kamehameha Heights area, I mean, there are tons.
What is a monster home?
So monster home, kind of under the letter of the law, is above about 0.7 FAR. So this is the amount of floor area divided by the size of the lot. But basically, it's one of those things where if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And in this case, you know, these homes, there's one on Hala Drive that had 22 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms and 6 parking stalls. And of course, to the neighbors, that was just sort of unacceptable. So there was this whole movement to say, hey, what's going on here? And so I started a group called Hi Good Neighbor with some neighbors from Kaimuki, where the same thing is happening.
Or hi?
Hi, H-I, yeah.
I was like, look at that.
Yeah, it's a branding, right? No, it's Hi Good Neighbor. And with neighbors from Kaimuki, where this is also happening. And we said, hey, what is really going on here? And as we started to peel the onion on that, we realized that DPP's processes could easily be gamed. There are people who are exploiting, our rules, finding every loophole in the book. And meanwhile, people that wanted to do simple things like enclosing their garage or,
Putting up a fence.
Yeah, simple things were getting caught in the line. And meanwhile, these folks could get a permit seemingly overnight and just get started. And that seemed a little bit backwards to me. Meanwhile, for 6 years, I was the executive director of the Hawaii Construction Alliance, which is the umbrella group for 5 of the construction unions. So it was the kind of bigger contractors, the unionized contractors, and even they, with all the resources in the world, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects, we're still getting caught in this. And it was incredibly frustrating. So if Hawaiian Dredging is having problems with their permits, I can't even imagine, what the family that just wants to do something very simple has to go through.
Yeah, and just coming from a builder, and this sounds crazy, but I'm 20 years in construction. That's how long I've been here on the island doing construction, over 20 years. So at that 20 years, what I've noticed, homes are falling apart here. I mean, if we just look at the history, the plantation homes that came in, the single wall construction, it's just a lot of falling apart. So just looking at the issues of permitting and kind of talking in the town hall is how that just to get a permit alone, you got to spend thousands of dollars on an architect. Then you got to go through time, all this time to wait. It's just a long process, even on the small things. So there's just been a clog in the system that's been happening. And I know you've been working really hard on Bill 56. Is that correct?
It just became law.
Whoa! Press the button.
I don't know which one it is.
You could tell us a little bit about Bill 56, because I remember in the town hall meeting, what it felt like is a house is on fire. The DPP at the time, director at the time, was saying, hey, we're going to send fire engines to put out the fire in about a year or two when we get 60 to 80 employees that are not out there. And it felt like, wow, we're in a burning house. What can we do as a homeowner or as somebody, a professional, to start putting out the fire until those fire engines get here? And I think Bill 56 that you've been working on is really kind of changing that game and bringing the conversation up. Could you explain a little bit what is Bill 56 for those listening and what you're doing?
Sure. Some people call it the DIY bill. It's home repairs. This is the exemption list. There's a list of things that you do not need a permit for. And these are things that you need a licensed contractor. You do it within your home. You're not building an apartment complex. You're not building a whole new room or changing the windows and the doors. You are swapping out component for component replacement. You have electrical work. You might have plumbing work. There also is a section where we talk about fences. So when I looked at this list, I thought, what is the easiest way to cut down this line of people getting permits? Get some people out of the line. Because if we're being so micromanagey about everything when we don't have the manpower, we're way behind on a workload, our director is overwhelmed, then we need to figure out, which one of these things are still fine with health and safety but do not need a permit. And so those are the things that we have in this bill. One, we upped the valuation amount for component replacement to $10,000, and that's labor and materials, which is still low. He and I both agree it's still low.
But what was it?
It was, I think, $2,500 or $1,000.
And that doesn't cover anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, as a builder, $2,500 is like, with labor and materials and markups and everything that goes involved, you're not accomplishing much.
Right. And then the electrical repairs was at $500. We put that up to $2,500. Plumbing is now up to $2,500. And that $2,500 for electrical repairs could be swapping out like a main panel or getting an electrical upgrade. Now, to your point about local residents in disrepair, we're talking about homes that might need a new electrical system, maybe things that are shorted out, people who are on oxygen tanks, people who live on the homestead. If you need to wait in line in the same line everyone else is for a permit so that you can fix your electrical so your house can work, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the things that Tyler put in was a portion about solar. So I'll let him take it away.
Yeah, we're in a moment where we all agree. I mean, we need to get off of fossil fuels and we're going to move to renewable energy and blah, 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 blah. But our systems were not geared towards that, right? You have to wait in the same line as everyone else. Even if you have an existing solar system from 20 years ago, you're one of the first adopters and you want to upgrade it now, get a new Tesla battery or whatever it is, you still have to wait in that line. Meanwhile, there are tax credits from the federal government that you could have, but if you don't have the permit and you're not ready to install, you're not going to get it. And so I was approached by a number of the kind of clean energy folks who said, we got to do something now. Honolulu has to be ready for this. There's a bunch of federal incentives coming down. But again, if this isn't in place, we're not going to be able to access it and people aren't going to enjoy it. So we put this into the bill, and thank you to Andrew for letting me put it into the bill. But we want to be ahead of the curve. I feel like we always beat ourselves up because we're like, why didn't we do this before? Why are we behind? And let's get ahead in some little way. And so I was a little bit proud of at least getting ahead on the solar battery, et cetera, et cetera. So we're ready.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said the Bill 56 is officially like,
yeah, it's law.
It's law. Come on.
I went to Kapolei DPP and I sat down with the people who actually do the permitting. I went through the law with them because they said they're getting lots of inquiries. They're getting a lot of people who have been waiting for years that said, wait, can I get out of the line now? They're like, yes. And some people still want to follow through with the permit because they've paid for it. But at the end of the day, for people who are walking in and making, the line longer, this is great. And one of the things that I learned in that town hall that you were at is 75% of those backlog permits, which at the time was 8,000, were all residential. And 60% of the 75 were solar.
That's crazy.
Oh man.
So, I mean, we got to really get down to the fact that we're disadvantaging local residents by having this problem. Because a lot of people, just like what Tyler said, a lot of people are, oh, they're going to let the commercial guys go. If our local residents can't fix their house and live here in Hawaii because it's too expensive, they waited for a permit for 2 years. Now their interest rate went up to repair their home. Now all the materials are too expensive for them to repair. What are we doing? We're not helping people.
No. And I think the biggest challenge as a builder is the unknown. So I even said in the town hall, if it's 2 years, make it 2 years, but be accountable in the 2 years because we can't even plan. Without any kind of transparency of time, there's no planning. Oh, if it's 2 years, it is. But that's the problem is we're sitting and it's like, I hope it is 2 years and not 3. But we're literally waiting 16, 18, and get up to 24 months before a permit even passes sometimes.
And this was part of the problem too is, they've moved everything to e-plans. You can submit things online, but still it's kind of a black hole after you submit it. You have no idea where it is in the process. And actually, they just introduced the bot, which is supposed to help
It's like
identify issues.
An AI reading?
And it's AI,
Yeah.
and it's helped some people, I think, identify little things. But sometimes the bot will kick a permit out,
Yep.
but it won't tell you why. And so you have to go figure out exactly what the issue
Well, and
is.
some of it is so, menial. Some of it is, the margins were wrong. Oh, the title. And that's the hard part, right? Is that a lot of people who are frustrated because maybe there's not a template. Hands down, e-plans is not supposed to be for permitting. I'm just going to say that. Posse and e-plans don't talk to each other. Those are the two systems that DPP expects everyone to use. And that was never meant to be a permitting system. And so it's really hard when you're getting through this. Yes, it's electronic, but you have to have the authority to make a comment, then you give it back to DPP. You know what I'm talking about.
I do, 100%.
Like, people are so frustrated. And to Tyler's point, starting in July, they actually moved everyone off of manual. So now you can't walk in plans. Everyone has to use e-plans, which I talked to the director and I was like, is this a good idea? She said, well, there's a lot of my workers being caught up with the manual walk-in process. So we thought we would streamline it so that we could kind of get everyone into the same place, even though e-plans has been really horrible for people to use. Yeah. We are hoping they are RFPing out a whole new system because Computronics is the current software that's being provided. But we really need to get into the 21st century, guys. Yeah,
100%. Just looking across other major cities, 80% of the major cities across the country are using very high-tech technology to move it. And it's a big deal because we're trying to grow as a state. We're trying to get on the map as a state. Let's just go into the economics of this. Just us alone, we have $10 million on hold for permits, and we've lost potentially $8 million to homeowners calling and learning about how long these permits are taking, and we can't even take those jobs. So we've had to slow our process down because the permits couldn't keep up, which is sad because we're strictly residential. Now, those are big numbers talking residential. And if you look at just the private sector alone, that's $10 billion compared to state and federal, which is $1 billion on the state alone. If you look at just the private sector, how much residential work is just sitting, it's crazy. So I just think economically, let's talk about Bill 18, which I think might be a huge win to continue the residential side of work. Can you tell us and educate us a little bit about Bill 18 that you're working on?
So in that town hall, people said, why is there only a special assignment inspection for commercial? Right? So that means that you're able to submit an idea of what you're doing, but you proceed with work, and then the inspector comes onto your job, and then that you can proceed while you're getting the permit. So you're still going to get the permit, but you don't have to wait for the completion of it to start work. Currently, right now, that is only afforded to commercial projects. Back to our problem, we have a residential problem. So I did approach the director, and again, I've been working with 2 different directors, and everyone was like, sure, yeah, let's do it. So it was a easy line out in the law, which currently said that you can't do this for single use homes. So we decided to, cross that out. Granted, DPP still needs more people, right? Sure. So a special assignment inspector means you have to have inspectors.
Yes.
Warm bodies.
And just to highlight
Yeah.
on that, we're already documenting everything we can. We're doing all these reports. Special inspections are passed to the architect. So we're doing everything we can to document anyway. Why not just make it so we are, they can work on the permit the time they need until we fix a solution. And we as the professionals can continue in the documentation and pass the risk to us versus it being on the city when the permit does pass.
I think one of the issues, and you nailed it, is they just don't have the people. And part of my frustration is they also don't quite have a plan to get those warm bodies in, to get them trained up, to prevent them from being poached by some other agency after they get trained up. And so this is also part of the issue that Andria and I and our other colleagues need to be working on. When they came before us for the budget hearings this year, they had 111 vacancies out of a department of less than 400 people. So it's a quarter vacant at minimum. And they told us at the budget briefing that they had a plan to fill 15 of those vacancies by July. So they're just taking this like little amount. I would like to see a plan where we can get all those bodies in because we need it for the inspectors. We need it for the enforcement side. We need it for all the different things DPP does. And so to the extent that we can be supportive, if anyone out there has any ideas, we're happy to hear those.
Well, one of the resolutions I proposed was a relief workers. So this is what they did during COVID, right? DLR, Department of Labor Relations, they were short on unemployment. So what did they do? They got up something up at the convention center. They hired 100 workers to try to get down the backlog because they couldn't do it with their current staffing. So I met with the president of HGEA and I said, would you be opposed to 1 year or maybe 2 years of us having relief workers to try to get this permit backlog down? He was like, I'm waiting for a permit. I would love that. And so I met with the director. I said, hey, president of HGEA said, let's make an agreement. You, the mayor, sit down, talk about this. So I talked to her last Friday. I said, where are we at on the relief workers? Because the HR process in the city is so long. Even if Don wants to get like 15 workers, I mean, how long would that really take? And we're short 80 to 100 workers, right? So she said they do have a proposal that's floating around to the departments for approval, but I'm like, we need that now.
And I think the SAI is a great, like going back to the analogy of the house is on fire, let the homeowners help put out the fire until the fire engines get here.
Right.
It's one of those things where the SAI, I think the process is there, but it's used for commercial use. And there's one line on there that I think you're working really hard on. And actually, that wasn't me working hard. It's like, hey,
let's line it out.
Let's line it out. Like, why are we excluding residential homes,
Yes.
single family homes? Like, so she went, crossed it out. And where's that bill now? Like, what's the process of that bill?
We're on second reading.
We're in second reading. It's still in zoning because we didn't move it
Tyler and I
forward.
are trying to get
Yeah.
it out
Let's
of
go,
the
let's
zoning
go, let's
committee.
go.
It's in progress. It's in
Yes.
progress. And, there are things to work out. I mean, there are going to be people that use this process to game the system, get around. And we need to make sure that the bad actors aren't taking advantage of this as well. Because that siphons off resources for the people that are just waiting, who really want to genuinely do things. I mean, I've seen lots of cases of people, especially in my district, with sort of the Monstrom issue and other things, abuse the third-party review system, abuse other things. So, but we can't let that get in the way of doing the important work that needs to happen. And so we have to find some balance there.
Right.
We also keep, again, setting up these processes, but not having the resources to do them. For example, one of the mayor's signature things for affordable housing is Bill 7, which are the kind of low-rise, mid-rise apartment things. They've gotten a bunch of waivers. They've gotten a bunch of exceptions, including being able to start building while their permit is waiting for approval. There is a project right now on the slopes of Punch Bowl in Kanamakiki area where they are coming up on completion and they still don't have a permit. And you can't move anyone in without a certificate of occupancy, but the certificate of occupancy requires a permit. And all they have is the application. They've been fully authorized to build while they're waiting. And they're like calling me and saying, hey, like, what are we going to do? And this is, it's 24 units. It's not a big project, but this is 24 apartments that local people are going to be living in. And it's still stuck there. And again, we set up this process, gave them a bunch of waivers, but didn't give them the tools to be successful. And that, to me, is egregious and ridiculous.
Yeah, and I liked what you were sharing with me when we were talking about looking at all the permits. You notice solar, going back to solar, was because this is really the issue, right? It's like, yeah, we can have these surface SAI things that put in place, but the real issue is it's clogged. And you notice, was it 60% with solar?
Oh yeah,
That's a
tons of it.
lot. So if you look at like, if there's, I don't know, was there 2,000 permits? What's the number right now if you were
Well,
to say?
last
Roughly.
year was 8,000.
8,000, and 60% of that was solar, right?
Yeah.
So you guys working on the solar, I think, is very huge. If that thing can flow through, it almost unclogs the system for the rest of the 40% to start moving. I'm just imagining like builder side a pipe with water and it's
true.
clogged
Yes.
and we need it to flow, right? So just knowing that you guys are working on that, I think is a huge step. Just understanding that, really just looking at the data, right?
Yeah, and I had introduced a resolution to have them use Solar App Plus, which is a federal app that was actually created by the government so that we could use it, because it's not just a Hawaii goal, it's like a national goal
Right.
for us to have more solar and more, green energy. So I met with the manager of Solar App Plus, the director of the department, her deputy, all of the solar guys, and this was a few weeks ago. They came to the conclusion we didn't have an electronic payment processor.
Oh wow.
What?
And that-
Hey,
and that the-
GoFundMe.com.
That's crazy.
And that the app needed a payment processor in order for the app to work.
Wow.
So last week when I got on the phone with the director, she said, "Oh, actually, we found out we do have a payment processor.
Oh, they do?
But we have to pay extra for it. See, with Computronics, everything is plug-in, guys.
Yeah.
You want this? Okay, got to pay more. You want to use that? Okay, got to pay more. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like, I don't know if we can hold our breath any longer. We really need a new software system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we're begging to have a payment processor, which you would think would come with a software for permitting, right? Or, oh no, we do have one, but you got to pay more for us to use it. So we're in that in-between spot where she's trying to determine, do we wait to get the new software or do we do the plugin with Solar App Plus? Guys, it's like we have all the tools right here.
This is government
Tyler.
being, penny wise and pound foolish. I mean, if we're complaining about the extra little percentage surcharge on the payment processor, meanwhile, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars of permit value. I mean, just your projects alone.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then when these projects are built, the city gets more property tax and all of
Yes.
that. I mean, the department's current budget, they bring in about $24 million of revenue a year in building permits and kind of other fees. Their total cost is about 30 something million. I mean, it's a very close number. If we can process more permits, this department could really just stand on its own.
Yes.
But
And
it's,
And you
we're
almost
there.
And you almost like, if there's a special occasion like the SAI, charge a little extra for it to cover it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. And they are, the champs, not last year, but the year before. But the reason they pay a little extra to have the guys that they have, it's called a luxury tax. So sometimes if you get that luxury opportunity to build early or something like that, just charge for it. People will pay an extra premium for time. Time is like,
I agree with that, but I would also say this department got to put out.
come on.
Come on. I'm just saying there are a lot of people that I know that pay extra for the SAI. I'm going to talk about right here in Kalaeloa, Par, Hawaii. They are the main petroleum producers in Hawaii. Their whole entire property, they're off the grid because they produce their own electricity, right? They can't even get their SAI, and they pay thousands. And guess what? It's 3 portable offices in trailers. They're trying to get a permit for 2 years.
And I think this goes back to like why we have permitting, right? We want it to be safe, health and safety. We want all these things. And obviously the city should know what's built. I mean, we never want to send an inspector and not know. But a solar panel on your roof,
Yeah.
it's silly, right? The trailer, it's probably the same trailer that everybody else has bought.
Yes,
It's the exact
for an
same
office.
thing.
Yeah.
You're just going to put it somewhere. Just let us know where you put it.
And
That's all we need to know.
And that's it. He nailed it. The solutions are actually simple because they're being used already. It's almost like you could borrow processes from where it's successful and borrow those. There are so many ideas we have, but the permitting clog is just kind of canceling those. Like spec homes, just putting together just drawings that are already spec'd, 5 different units, have it approved one time, and then we can always gear to that as quick approvals. Done.
Yes.
We could build so many
Yes.
homes just knowing that. But I do understand. Okay, I am for permits in place. Number one, we got to have an understanding we have to have ESCP control. That's just knowing everything that's happening. We're on an island, so we got to be very careful of erosion control, construction happening, contaminants going into the ocean. So I'm all for permits and having control of that. Also understanding waste control. You can't be putting monster homes. I think the biggest thing is like,
The wastewater, it can't handle 24 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms.
so there has to be some regulations on those things. But then looking at the spec home, if we follow all the rules and just build a drawing and a plan that just meets everything and build like 6 to 10 of them and say, hey, get them pre-approved in certain zonings. And then boom, we could just offer so many homes and have quick permit processes. But just knowing that that's not even accepted, it has to go through that regular residential commercial line. It kind of defeats the whole purpose. So there are, and I think the other thing I would like to note is what I'm afraid of is when we first came in and started All Things New, and the reason we even named it All Things New was we noticed that homeowners were building without permits, contractors were doing things without permits, and quality was out the door, things weren't being followed, and now I know why. It is at the time is like All Things New is we're going to come in, we're going to have an integrity, we're going to follow the rules, we're going to do all this, we're going to change the system, we're going to be the best on the island so people can see it works if you just follow the rules. But here we are, and I got to turn down $8 million worth of work. This is just the voice of what's happening. I see it happening again. I feel like our island was healing with oh yeah, you can follow the rules and do this and get it done. But now here we're back at square one because we're getting permits in like I think 5 or 6 months, and then the whole DPP thing with I guess people got arrested and things were.
Well, from what I heard, this is the worst it's ever been. And
this is bad.
This is old school DPP guys telling me this. Like they worked like 30 years ago and they just left a little bit. Like we get it that it's always a hard thing, but I think to Tyler's point, there's like simple things that we have to let go of, and that's why I thought Bill 56 was so good because we have to let go of control of 6-foot fences and below. We have to let go if they're already allowing the water to flow. We need to let go of the micromanaging of things that really are just going to help our communities to look better.
Yeah, it's huge. And so like I love that you guys are giving it attention. Like I said at the beginning, the fact that you're, number one, giving it attention, allowing us to voice ourselves and hear our voices is huge. So thank you so much for hearing our voices, but not only listening, actually doing something about it, like actually seeing things in movement and then reading articles of what you're doing with Bill 56. I was like, that's what, pinged me even to email you like, what? Let's go. Like things are happening. And then she introduced me to Tyler and what he's doing in town. So just knowing that you guys are at work is huge. And then, with us, we don't ever accept an issue. If we have an issue in construction, we look for what's a task, right? We don't say, oh, it's an issue. What's the next thing we got to do, right? So knowing that you guys are taking these issues and creating tasks and making things happen is huge, not only for construction, but our homeowners, the people that live here. They're the people, and I can't even serve a lot of them. We're already dealing with inflation and cost. We're dealing with, it's hard to get products since COVID. We're already waiting 12 months just for appliances, and so we got all these other issues that we got to deal with, and then we can't even get a permit. I mean, the kind of the inside joke is we're a design build firm. We'll design, and by the time we get the permit, the trend has already changed.
It's outdated.
It's outdated already.
Yeah.
So it's that bad because 2-year swing on trends it changes, so that's just to be for laughs and giggles.
It's been great working with Tyler because, when I first got into the council, a lot of their suggestions were just, let's have a study. Let's do an audit. They've audited this department. We have studies of what's going wrong.
Come on.
Like we need to put our hand in there and start fixing it. And when I had that town hall, I was, meticulously writing all these notes because I was like, there are things that just legislators can do. The department can't do that. The mayor can't do that. As a policymaker, we can change components of the law.
Let's go.
So I said, here, this is what the mayor can do. Here, this is what the department has to do. Here, this is what we need to do as legislators. We got to get into our column and start working at it. Some of these things are old, very old. They need to be updated. Tyler and I have to go in there and try to look through it. But because of his background, we can talk specifics, not like, let's study and tell me what's wrong. Like, no. This has been decades of this being wrong. Yeah,
exactly. And we're not going to get it. We as a council, the mayor, DPP, we're not going to get 100% right all the time. But we can't let perfect be the enemy of progress, right? And so that's why I'm really glad that all of these bills are moving forward because we're at least starting this conversation and forcing the department and forcing other stakeholders to come to the table and do better. And speak up. And so I'm really glad that at the town hall, you've brought these issues to our attention. We could go all day long as legislators in our offices and have no idea really what's going out in the community unless people bring it to us. And we can, of course, go out and inspect things and do all that, but we won't know because you guys are in the trenches. So I'm really glad that, you guys are bringing things up. I hear it from my constituents too. I mean, we really just need to get things done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we appreciate you guys so much for making time to bring not only awareness, but knowing that things are happening. So as a voice from homeowners and builders, thank you to both of you. And you have our support, and anything you need from us as a construction standpoint. I'm so excited to get these bills going, man.
Well, we can always use people testifying.
Come on.
So I do have an email list. Everyone who does testify, we start to collect information, blast it out. Reading 1, reading 2, reading 3. Like, it's always good to have community members say, hey, this is how it's going to help me. Hey, these are the things that I'm thinking of. So stay engaged in the legislative process. There's a reason there's 3 readings, because we're hoping that in every reading it gets better.
And is that how we
hoping.
could help, is putting testimonies in before those readings?
Well,
Yes.
I read the testimony. Sometimes the testimony tells me stuff that I'm like, I didn't think of that. Let's fix it. Let's do a little amendment here.
it.
Let's fix that. So I would say a verbal testimony over, Zoom, or even just a written one. Both of us are reading through it. We're trying to make these the best that we can be. Like he said, it's never perfect because we can't see around all the edges, but we would love your input as people who on the ground are getting affected by this issue.
And it's not stressful. I know people are like, oh, it's a city council. Ooh, we only have 3 minutes or 1 minute or whatever. Share your story. I mean, keep it tight. But we also want to hear examples. I mean, tangible examples. That really helps to illustrate things, because otherwise it's words on paper. It's very abstract. Right. But if somebody says, I've been waiting 2 years for a 6-foot fence,
Yes.
Yeah.
all of our colleagues are going to say that's ridiculous, right? And just the solar guys. I mean, we keep pushing solar and it still takes this long, and it's basically impossible. People have told us that. So we said we had to move.
It's good. Yeah. So real tangible.
Yeah.
We had a home that was falling apart. Retired policeman and his wife tear down the home completely, build new, and then for their generations to go, and design all the way to the point of finally getting the demo permit was already about 8 to 10 months, and then waiting for the building permit was about another year and a half.
Oh no.
So just, gosh, I feel like I've known them through a whole college.
Yeah.
It's like 3 years we've just been in relationship with them. So, but since
that's
that,
so sad.
but since our testimony sharing in the Kapolei town hall, the permit did finally pass, and we're in the midst of their construction. So there is hope. I mean, eventually it will. Things do pass, but it'd be nice when these things are in place for us. So thank you guys so much for coming down to Builder of All Things podcast early in the morning on Wednesday. You guys are awesome. You got our full support and allowing us to be a voice. Thank you for your
Andrea
ears.
and Tyler, thank you so much for coming down. I know a lot of homeowners are gonna love this episode. And guys, these are the people working diligently in the background,
Come on.
like
Hardcore.
you don't see them, but they are like on it. And so this is just a huge blessing for those guys, and really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of homeowners are really appreciative of that. So
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank
Anything else
you.
you want to say? Anything else?
No,
Because we can edit it in if you have
We
one more.
appreciate you guys. I love that you brought up the fact that these permit numbers are not necessarily just 8,000 permits, but 8,000 permits equals how much billions of dollars. We're talking about economically pushing forward the city and county of Honolulu. So I feel like this is a much bigger issue than people make it out to be. And I really, urge the administration to continue to make it a priority because it affects so many people. That story you just told about the police officer, I've heard stories about people trying to renovate their homes for their parents who are disabled, trying to make a ramp, trying to, make it where you can still live in your house comfortably. And the stories are disheartening because it just affects your quality of life. So we are trying to improve the quality of life of our constituents, of the community members here, in our county. So we are pushing forward. I know not fast enough, but we're going to keep pushing.
on.
Yeah, because, fast for government sometimes is 3 to 5 years, which is unfortunate. But, the little things we're doing, we're hoping will help.
Yeah, it's legacy. I got 10 grandkids, 2 on the way.
Wow. All right.
Almost 12 disciples.
Wow.
Yeah, so as a grandpa, just knowing, we're setting a legacy for our family, my family and other families to come. So the legwork's here. You have us to help with whatever you need. So appreciate you guys.
thank you so much. If you are a homeowner and you've been waiting for a while for your permits, please send a testimonial to Andrea or Tyler. Like you said, they read it, guys, and we need it. And we need tangible ones just to make the weight a little heavier and get things going. We need to come as a community for homeowners. And, yeah, guys, help us out. Let's just work together. And thank you so much again, guys.
Thank
Andrea,
you.
Tyler.
All right.
I come from a poor family, yeah, yeah. We ain't